thanks again for coming. I'm going to introduce the next panel. I'm going to stick to the same format just to get different perspectives on the same issues that obviously hospitality is facing. I just noticed you guys haven't got a mic. One second. There we go. So Mitch, do you want to mind introducing yourself, and then we'll go from left to right?
Yeah, hello, I'm Mitch Cook. I'm from workforce.com. I'm the head of hospitality, and we essentially do workforce management, HR, and payroll software. So I think Tommy described in the last panel his ideal workforce management software. We basically do that.
I'm Matt, and I run a consultancy business which specialises in leisure, hospitality, and competitive socialising, but also own 3 venues of my own, so I've got a dual perspective on it.
Hi, my name is William Connors. Most recently, I was head of IT for Wingstop. Before that, I was with the Noble Group, Oaxaca, and Popeyes.
Thank you. I'll give you this one, actually.
Oh, thank you, Boo. Hi, my name's Josh. I run an independent restaurant in Dalston called Angelina. I'm soon to run the second one in the city, and I'm super excited to be here and share my perspectives.
Hi, my name is Laura Moxham. I work for a company called Use, and we do accounts payable automation. And hospitality is like our first historical segment. So, yeah.
Thanks very much. Okay, Matt, well, since you got the mic, we'll start with you. What are your biggest concerns regarding the changes that happened on 1st of April?
It'd be similar concerns to everybody else in the massive amount of cost increase that's come with it. The concern from seeing clients try and deal with it is it's actually a really complicated set of financial changes to understand. And a lot of the way the press are handling it is not as nuanced as it should be. So there's not a lot of focus on the thresholds of the employer's NI change, which is really, really critical. That's what's pushed businesses into effectively needing to be including the rates relief, probably doing about 15% more turnover to stand still, which is just a big scary number. But there are ways you can fix that, and there are ways you can combat it, but you need to have a really deep understanding of where your labour costs are coming from, which is why you need software and tools like Workforce, like any labour management system, to really drill into where that extra payment is coming from.
Great. William, from your perspective, what are the concerns from?
Well, everybody is being pushed on margins for stock, for labor, for footfall. And what it is before you used to have 3 or 4 people doing specific tasks. Now, more and more, you're relying on 2 people or 1 person to do the job of 3 or 4 people. And you have to make sure that you maintain the same level of service at the same time.
Okay. Over to you, Josh.
So I think that I see this in kind of 2 ways. One is a kind of macro concern. I think there's a lot of pessimism surrounding cost increase, and I think that impacts how much money people are willing to spend in hospitality venues. People go out less, and we've seen that over the last 3 years, how people kind of jerk react. Even if the amount of money in their bank account hasn't changed, their behaviors change. And then I think on a micro level, for us, it's 5 or 6% increase in costs. And for a small business, that makes it incredibly hard to still have something to take home at the end.
And how are you leveraging technology to combat these changes?
I think it's a really good question, because in the fine dining sector, historically, there was very little technology. All of the focus was on product, it was on food, it was on dishes, and there was space in your margins. You were working at 75%, people were going out regularly. And I think that what's happened over the last 3 years, I would say, is that we've been forced to look at different ways to stay in the same place. So obviously the food is still important, but we're now using a rota management software. We're using MarketMan to manage our inventory and our stock. We're using electricity management software. We're doing things I would have never dreamed of. We're not allowed to turn the pasta boiler on until 5 p.m. because it costs us £1.70 an hour to run. We're managing water with technology. So I think it's something that we've gradually increased in our business. And thanks to now AI, as we were hearing in the previous panel, it's possible to bring those things together and kind of reduce the amount of work that might have been in the past.
And Matt, from your perspective?
I think we've really used technology to lean heavily into budgeting and forecasting, because it's what was immediately obvious with coming into this sector, particularly from leisure in the background. You would have reports that would tell you numbers, you've done this, you've spent this, which is kind of meaningless unless you know you should have taken this much money or you should have spent this much money. And certainly when your reporting used to be very focused on, an accountant would send a report out 3 weeks into the month after, which is 40 to 50 days after the mistake was made, that's made that week not profitable. Now we have technology that can give you up to the minute feedback. The guys can finish a shift, look at a series of really key metrics and know whether or not they've done a good job. Whereas probably 3 or 4 years ago, they'd know, we took $5,000. Great, but you should have taken $6,000 and your labor should have been 27% and it was actually 29. That feedback's only possible because of the technology stack we've got and all the other information that comes into it.
William?
Just building on what was said in the previous panel, before you used to kind of use your gut on everything like 30 years ago, but now what it is you've got so much data, but you have to apply the data in a very constructive way. So before you would be like, I think the kitchen's wasting food. Now you can be like, these are your profit margins. These are the items that you're wasting. How can we focus on making it better? And you can do the same thing in the same fashion for your power, for your labor. So all these things are good, and that's how you can use the data to focus on getting percentage points ahead, just like what was mentioned before.
Perfect. I was actually having an interesting conversation during the break, and it was around how hard it is to get people, but have you seen, a drop in footfall coming into London with, increased like VAT and things like that? And as a kind of a follow-up question to that, how important is staff retention for you guys to operate your business effectively in the face of like rising wage costs, so on and so forth?
Yeah, there's been a drop in footfall. We're operate some venues in Kingston in southwest London. The local bid is pretty good at doing footfall tracking for the town centre. There's double-digit decline in people coming into the town centre based on all the research they've got, which is pretty terrifying. From my client's perspective, I see a lot of people running flat to last year from a revenue perspective, but clearly they've put 5 to 10 to 15% of the prices, which tells me that probably is 10% footfall reduction. So yeah, it's very clear that that's there and that's a problem. And the question around staff and the retention of them, yeah, it's really expensive to onboard new people versus keep the people you've got, because you have to pay someone to train them, someone to actually do the admin of onboarding them, no matter how good your HR management system might be. There's a huge labor cost in doing it, and then you have to get them up to speed to be able to do it. So if you think about a new person versus an existing person at a blended labor cost, including all the other bits of labor that comes in, not the hourly rate, it is hugely more expensive to the business per hour to be adding people all the time. So you've got to keep those people, or you're just loading cost for no reason.
I mean, one key thing is there's a real focus now. There's a shift to making sure that the employees that you have stay happy. And there's lots of software out there right now which constantly gets feedback saying, how did you like the training? Do you feel supported? So that's one thing. You want to have an engaged workforce, but also too, you want to make sure that the most efficient solution in place for training and everything. Somebody mentioned the other day about sending everyone across the country to one place to get training. It's just not a feasible way to do things anymore. So there's a lot more remote training and a lot more digitizing. So you show that you've passed every single module. So yeah, that's where technology is kind of stepping in to fill the void.
And Joshua, from your perspective, because you're saying that you're going to be opening up a second venue as well, how are you growing in this particular environment? And again, from a staff perspective, how important is it that you're retaining the existing staff, and how easy are you finding it to find new staff, I suppose?
I think there's a couple of questions there to unpack. I think on the question of retention, I think we're quite fortunate. So being in a neighborhood When you do find the right people, it tends to be because it's close to home. It tends to be it saves money on travel, especially being quite unique and being kind of in the premium end of the sector, but slightly further out of town. But then I think it's the work that you put in every day. So I think making it fun to go to work, I think, is higher up on our agenda than it ever was. I think COVID was the best training ground, because when we were talking about finding new staff, there was about 18 months where people didn't exist. And so you had to be so creative to even fill a shift. I mean, I don't think I ever worked so much as in 2021. And I think now, I think that was a really good training. And I think, as a business, we've gotten a lot better at retaining. I think digital platforms have come into it. We've got rotoring systems. We've got POS systems, which are constantly monitoring, how people are enjoying their shifts. It's kind of instant feedback. That used to be something that you'd have to wait weeks. You'd have to hear it secondhand from someone else. You'd have to guess what was gossip. And I think all of these kind of anonymous but real-time channels that enable people to, kind of have a voice are great. And I also think that the younger generation coming through maybe are slightly different to we were. And, they're not afraid to tell us what we're doing wrong. And I think that makes it difficult as an employer. I think we all miss the days when everyone just got on with it occasionally, but I think it also makes us better, and it makes us think constantly. It makes us think how to create better workplaces, better environments, and I think with retaining almost like you think in other industries, and I think that was missing before, and it's one of the legacies after COVID that we've all got to be a little bit better, and technology helps that for sure.
I mean, Mitch, this sounds like it's right in workforce wheelhouse. How are you guys helping operators? Yeah. There's a few things. Sort of around this topic, and particularly around the increases in NIC. There are some operators that I think doing awesome things. And I was listening to a panel a few weeks ago. Ollie Cavaliero from Pizza Pilgrims was talking. And he mentioned his primary goal for trying to combat the increases in staff costs this April was investing in their staff. So obviously it sort of ties back into the retention side of things. Workforce obviously does everything to do with HR and whatnot. So there are lots of different things. I think tools, and giving managers in particular tools that make their job easier, allowing them to sort of achieve their goals, hit their targets, keep their bosses happy is probably a big one. But we're also seeing other things like businesses providing benefits to their employees that might end up being a tax benefit to the business as well as the employee, along with just generally making the experience for employees to be employed easy. Can I pick up an extra shift here and there if I need extra work? And then from the manager's perspective, what's the impact of who I give this shift to? Is someone more expensive than someone else? And then from the payroll perspective, who or how much will this cost me in reality when you consider national insurance and employer thresholds and different things like that, like ultimately operators aren't paying their staff an hourly rate and that's it. Like there's so many costs that happen after that. So if we can put, tools in their hands that do allow them to hit those targets, I think they're engaged and they'll sort of stick around.
Thank you. And over to the operators, yeah. Well,
just to compliment Mitch with the workforce, one of the key things that a lot of businesses are looking for is giving their employees a proper work-life balance. So I remember as a manager, I would spend like 3 days setting up rotas and I'd be trying to please everybody and I'd never be able to please everybody. So like with the data, with the product like Workforce or any other, a few of the better products out there, you can say, okay, Adam likes Friday nights, William likes Monday to Wednesday. So having to do that manually is incredibly difficult, but with the solutions out there, you can just basically 15 minutes ding and maybe not please everyone, but you can please 95% of the people. And from there, you can make little tweaks, to adjust.
what tools have you guys been putting in place, Matt, or your customers or in your own business to help and buffers?
I think well, to sort of follow on from that point, but with helping the business by helping the employees, is we now live in this world where effectively you used to be able to employ someone who would do 2 shifts at minimum wage and they would attract 0 employers NI. You now employ people who do 1 shift at minimum wage and attract 0 employers NI. So the best thing to do would be to have many staff all doing 1 shift. That would be ideal. But every single manager will say, that's a nightmare, I don't want to do that because it will make my life really hard. So now we have some tools that will enable us to do automated rotoring and onboard the staff faster and train the staff faster with less input. That means it's more accessible to go for that goal of many flexible people rather than fewer inflexible people. Plus, 5 people who do 1 shift a week can all work Saturday night. 1 person doing 5 shifts can only do 1 shift on Saturday night. So flexibility is good. It was very difficult to do that and managers hated it before all these tools existed.
Okay. And Joshua, from Angeline's point of view?
I think it's a similar kind of story. We use Planday in-house, and it can come from the bottom up and people can request their own time off and their own shifts. And when you're looking at a kind of pan view, it makes that decision making so much more easy. I mean, that, as you were saying, that used to take forever. You'd be sat late at night and it was one of those thankless tasks that you knew whatever you did and however many requests you did managed to accommodate, there was going to be 2 or 3 where you really got it wrong. And so, it's nice to have those tools to support it now.
And Laura, how does use kind of feed into that as a tool to help employees?
So I guess we all know how that is to work in a company that has the wrong tools and wrong processes, and we feel like we're doing menial work that actually is not bringing added value. And so I guess if we think about staff retention, providing them with the right tools may be, knives in the kitchen, or with accountants may be the right system where they have accurate data, no errors. I think providing the right tools helps with retention because they feel like they're doing added value work, whereas the opposite, menial.
Thank you. And I think we'll end the discussion around the conversation about AI, because it's a buzzword certainly, everywhere, but certainly in the hospitality as well. And I'd be keen to understand, your operator's perspective. Is it just a buzzword, or is it something that you guys are seriously looking at using to help employees, help the business?
That sounds like you're setting me up to say something really controversial. Yes, it's a buzzword. Of course, it's a buzzword. It's the current popular thing. But if we look at AI as actually being machine learning, like someone said earlier, or even just using lots of information to really quickly be sifted to create answers, then it's incredibly useful because you couldn't do that before. So one could now use a stock management system to look at every single dish you've got, every single drinks product you've got, then the amount of sales you do on that between period X and period Y, and start to flag things where you're not moving the minimum pack size of an item, which would be a huge amount of data to sift. So no one would do it. So you'd end up buying the old, I used to work for Tempin, who have not a great food range, but so people will laugh at that from actual restaurants. But they used to have 2 by 1.136 kilos of bacon delivered, back bacon, and it would deliver frozen because it came from breaks. And you'd only really use it at the weekend, so everyone defrosted the whole thing at once because you couldn't cut it in half without someone injuring themselves. So you would basically be throwing away kilos of bacon each week. And it was so obvious to anyone working in the site, but no one who was working in the site could tell the person in charge of purchasing bacon that it was actually cheaper from a long point of view to buy more expensive bacon in smaller packs, because then we wouldn't throw so much away. Now, I would hope that companies like Tempin have a stock management system that highlights that. And if they don't, they should.
One of the fantastic tools that we use that employs AI is with the CCTV. Because what it is before you'd like, how many people are passing in front of the restaurant? And so using the CCTV, we just drew an imaginary line outside and we ran the camera back and forth for 1 month. And so we said exactly 32,000 people are going in this direction, 23,000 in this direction. Like before, you'd have a consultant and they'd ask questions. So that area is great. The same type of CCTV AI, we say, okay, how many people are visiting the bottomless drink soda machine? How many people are going to wait in line and then just get a fed up after 10 minutes and leave? So a point of sale can track how much sales you've done, but you cannot track how many people have left, any kind of lost sales. And another key thing you were saying before about redundant, unnecessary work that people do. Like one of the key pet peeves spoken to me by managers is saying, I have to go every half hour to take a temperature of every single fridge and every single thing. And yes, it has to be done, but this is something that can be automated by putting in little devices inside the fridges. So you get real-time information. And of course, I have to mention Tenzo, because Tenzo will give you accurate stock, accurate labor in 15-minute increments, so you can know where to place your resources throughout the day. So for that, Tenzo was a great help to our business as well.
Thank you. Joshua, are you doing anything with the AI, Angelina?
I think increasingly we're doing more. I'll follow on and say that Tenzo's a fantastic tool that we've used for some time now. I would say that's more on the kind of machine learning and automation side. So for the last 10 years, we've had a lot of data, and I think we've been digital for a while, but the problem with data is how you manage the data, how you synergize the data, and how you bring the data from different systems together. And that's something that's becoming increasingly possible. And I think now, Tenzo, for example, brings together inventory and rotoring and scheduling, and also sales revenue and also feedback all at the same time. So that, even though it's a kind of snapshot piece, that used to take 20 minutes, half an hour to go around and get all those different points. And I think the second thing is, just kind of more current and more new, is on generative AI. And I think there's a huge space for that. So firstly, from a marketing perspective, so recently in launching our new restaurant, we were thinking about doing a soft opening. And what we find with soft openings is whatever discount you give, people don't give you any leeway. They come there disappointed and that you're not quite up to speed yet. And you end up being really busy for 2 weeks. And then the real work starts and you've got to build up a custom and do the regular thing that you have to do in a restaurant. Now, what we did is we did a gift card campaign, and to our email marketing mail out list, we sent the possibility to purchase future meals at a discounted price. So let's say you spend £50, you get £100 to spend when the restaurant finally opens. So it does the same thing as a soft opening, but it protects you from it all coming at once, and it spreads it over time, and it gives you a little bit more of a drip through. Now, in doing that, what we found is using generative AI, we were able to optimize our mail outs through multivariate testing, not only seeing what combination of subject line versus who it comes from versus what images we use are most successful, but we're also able to create lots of different content really quickly. Obviously, some of it's nonsense, some of it we put aside, but coming up with 5 different subject lines to say, come to our opening, please, is exhausting. But when you've got a tool that does all that for you and it does it instantaneously, and you're able to throw aside what you don't want and take the valuable bits, I think that's incredible. And I think that's only going to grow, from monitoring email inboxes to, dealing with voicemail and, remember sitting 11:30 at night and seeing which phone calls you missed during service. And, they pick up the phone, hello, 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 and it's 10 minutes before they leave their message. All of that's gone. And I think that's only going to increase. So I think that there's a really exciting generative AI space. And I think behind us, we're now kind of at the peak of this, automation, machine learning space where we can finally deal with all this data that for so long we've been sitting on and couldn't process.
Thanks. I mean, Laura, I think Use is like a native AI system, isn't it? So I would ask you how you're using AI, but it's a full AI system. How are operators using it essentially, and how are they taking to using a native AI system?
So for AI, I think there's two things that I see. So first of all, I see is working on efficiencies, being able to spend less time on your tasks, like I said, but it's stretching also visibility. So with real-time data, for instance, you get better decision making. So I think that's the bottom line. If you have that clear vision, you can react also faster. So yes, I think AI focuses really on helping making the decision making within financial directors and managers. And yes, we're actually we have our own AI, inbuilt AI. We have our own research development team, and I think it will keep on evolving and automation. I think I don't agree with what Josh says in terms of the random peak of automation. I think there's so many more things to come.
And Mitch, over to you. Is workforce utilizing AI, machine learning?
Absolutely. We've been using machine learning for about a decade in partnership with Domino's Pizza. So they were our first big customer a long while back. So it's not a new concept to us, but we've sort of been taking new technology as it becomes available to us and feeding that into our product. So the forecasting and machine learning side of AI, that's something that absolutely we do, and every single workforce customer gets access to that. But there's some sort of, I guess, more exciting things, or maybe slightly unconventional or modern versions of or applications of AI that we're building into our product. But typically, what the engineers from our team will do is they'll decide, okay, will AI actually make this better for a user, for an operator, or is it just a gimmick? Can I write better code than what maybe an AI agent or something like that could produce? And we've found some pretty cool features coming out of it, like you can now click a button and Workforce can build a really complex org chart for you that then influences your approval process. Or someone could apply for a job through Workforce and we could summarize and order based on your preferences and your job criteria what or who might be someone that you'd like to look at. So there's things like that it's fun seeing them be applied, and every day I arrive at work and there's a new feature that's released and it's really exciting. So yeah, absolutely, but keen to see what comes next. I think there's definitely a lot more that could be a lot more impactful as well.
I think it never ceases to amaze me how resilient the hospitality industry is. You know, I'm going to speak specifically about the UK, but you know, we're facing challenge after challenge after challenge, but yet hospitality operators keep going, keep trying to find new ways, and I think it's absolutely remarkable. It sounds like it's getting a bit rowdy in here now, so I think we far better join them rather than try and beat them. So I'd like to say thanks very much to the second panel. It's been an awesome discussion.